Hello, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. My name is Dan Connolly, and I am a professor of management at Drake University. And I get the great pleasure of being the moderator for today's session on hot new research, Voices of the Hotel Customer. And with me today are two wonderful panelists. First is Josh Rowe, who's the Director of Product and Business Development at Dish Business, where he leads the product management, business development, and technical support for Dish's commercial businesses. Also with us is Frank Pitsikalis, who is the founder and chief executive officer for ResortSuite, which is a global hospitality software solution for luxury hotels, resorts, spas, and clubs. Today, we're going to talk about some of the latest research from hospitality technology. Each year for the past 9 years, I have had the privilege of working with HT Magazine on a customer engagement technology study. This year, it took a little bit of a different tack than we have in the past. Normally, we survey hotel, restaurant operators, as well as guests or customers of hotel and restaurants. This year, due to the pandemic, we decided to focus predominantly on the guest and survey the guests to understand what they're looking for now during this time of the pandemic and going forward when it comes to serving their needs. This year's study just came out. It's hot off the press, and it's entitled, "What Do Guests Want Now?" Below the caption on your screen is a link if you'd like to download the full study. But today we're going to share some excerpts from the study, and Josh and Frank are going to comment on some of the findings and add to them with their insights throughout their experiences in the industry. So let's just jump right in. Oh, but before I do, I just want to invite you, if you have questions at any point in the session, please feel free to type them in, and we'll monitor the questions as they come in and try to incorporate them into the session. We'd love to make sure that we're addressing what's on your mind. So to start us off, I wanted to start us on a really encouraging or optimistic note. We surveyed over 845 travelers. And these are seasoned travelers, people who in the last 2 years or so had well over 5 trips per year, or in that 2 years time span. And we asked them if they had taken a trip since May, and only 19% had. But when we asked them about their plans for the next 12 months, we were very encouraged to find that 61% have plans to travel. And we see that this is really good news for the industry. So I want to start off, and I'll ask Josh and Frank to comment. What do they make of these findings? Why do they think people are so eager to travel despite still continued warnings from health officials, CDC, and government officials indicating that it's best to stay at home? So Josh, would you like to share some insights?
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. So thank you, and glad to be here. I think in general, right, I think the entire society is really just suffering from COVID fatigue. They haven't really been able to see their friends or family in months. They haven't been having normal face-to-face meetings, business meetings, attending conferences or events. And for many, I think, right, we're ready to have a break. So many of us canceled, delayed vacations. And really, these decisions have led us kind of to where we're at today, right, which is has been somewhere around only 19% of people traveling over the past, let's call it 5 to 6 months. And people are ready to go back, right, back to traveling. But I think what's kind of expedited that for most people is a couple things. One being that the hotels have done a tremendous job communicating to their guests on their ability to make the hotel environment safe, and through COVID protocols, through deep cleaning of rooms, through many things, social distancing, and making contactless experience for the guests. So I think the hotels have done a great job communicating that. You go on the websites, right? You see it everywhere. You go in your app, you book a room, and you get notification ahead of time of what the experience is going to be like and what to expect. So it's made me to think about traveling again. Obviously still low right now, but over the next 12 months, hugely encouraging to see 61% of people expecting to go back.
Frank, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, everything that Josh said, just about the whole pent-up demand, I think we're all sort of looking forward to traveling again. And I think what will happen is we'll see the leisure travel probably sort of snap back first. And then sort of business, maybe the individual business traveler, and then the groups. I think by the spring, I think we're going to see more conferences being held in person. All due respect to the great work HC Next year is to put on this conference, and high tech before it. But the reality is, it's not going to replace the in-person events, and so. I think there is that pent-up demand. I think hotels have done a great job, but we also have to recognize that is sort of the early adopters are the ones that they're coming back to traveling again, and so we can't get lulled into a sense of they seem to be okay with our protocols and everything else, because it's really drawing back the other travelers as well, right? How are we going to get them back as well, in the sense of making sure we're communicating those protocols, so that we have to keep that up. We can't just think, okay, travel is coming back, and we no longer have to be as diligent in communication and all of our processing being very visible. So I think that's going to carry on over the next 12 months, but certainly encouraged by the results of the survey, and that. And it's what we're hearing as well, and what we're seeing in our clients as they're starting to open and ramp up as well.
Josh, what kind of travel patterns do you anticipate we'll see with this group as they go back?
Yeah, I mean, overall, what the survey shown is most of the travel that's coming back, as Frank mentioned, is going to be leisure travel or personal travel, but expect a lot of those to be kind of the overnight weekend variety. Could be a lot of last minute bookings, and expect most people are going to be traveling by car still. It's clear people aren't ready to get back on airplanes quite yet, so we will see a lot of travel by car. Again, as Frank kind of alluded to, right? Personal will come back. We expect that to be a large portion of that 61% likely. But then business is going to come back, as he said, right? We're going to see the events, the conferences, the desire to meet face-to-face. And as companies kind of release the purse strings on the travel expense budgets, right? That'll encourage people to get back there. And I mean, the big one is, right, we're ramping up to put vaccines out in the marketplace. As those trickle down over the next year into the masses, people are going to be more and more comfortable as they see the impact of that as well. So same kind of pattern Frank mentioned, totally agree.
Certainly there's excitement that the vaccinations are just around the corner and having such success in the early trial stages. Both of you had indicated about business travel coming back, and yet there are some very influential people. For example, I recall not long ago reading a quote from Bill Gates that he anticipates that about 50% of all business travel will not come back, that it's no longer necessary. How do you respond to that?
No, I think, Dan, what we've seen from just all of our desire to get back to traveling and meeting face to face, I think it's proven to all of us the value of that, and so I think business travel is here to stay. Group events and everything else certainly we'll have hybrid, and we'll be able to do additional things, but it's not going to replace travel and meeting face to face. I think technology can certainly do a lot of things, and maybe they will curb some some unnecessary travel, but I still think large group events and getting together and networking is still so valuable. So I think 50%. That's a huge number, and I just don't see it. I just don't see it happening.
I do want to mention, when we did our survey, this 61% responded favorably towards travel. This was before the announcement of Pfizer's successful pretrial results, as well as before the U.S. presidential election results were settled. So we believe that this number is actually more conservative because of those factors. I think that we're seeing a lot of enthusiasm with the hope being placed on the success of these virus tests, vaccination tests, and that they're starting to have immediate plans for distribution and such. So this is really encouraging news for the hospitality industry. I want to ask, given all this pent-up demand, what do hotels need to do to capture their share of this? You know, how do they make returning to a hotel great again?
So I can jump in on that one. I think to me, right, they got to keep up the best practices that have been put into place today. Right, the way hotels are communicating to their guests has never been better. There's clear, concise communication on, especially on safety practices, but also on cancellation policies and a lot of other things that are very clear and upfront to customers now. I think the ones that have actually done this during COVID will probably likely see a lion's share of the pent-up demand come their way, because they had the good reviews, right? They had the positive guest and consumer sentiment out there for their brands, for their properties, that have shown they could perform. I think the other one is, right, continue developing on the things that have started. So the contactless experience around everything from check-in to mobile keys to cleaning communication, text messages on site. There's a lot of things that have come about and kind of proliferated through this event that should not end, right? They should be built upon as people look kind of out over the next couple of years and are building their entire experience for their guests. Continue to build on the things that have gotten positive results to this point, and a lot of those are going to continue to be contactless experiences.
Very good. Frank, do you have anything you'd like to add there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hotels that sort of do it right, and we're seeing investments being made in that customer journey to ensure that there is that very positive communication. Guests are going to be returning now with expectations that they never had before, right? That hotels never had to deal with before. So, and in some cases, they'll want that contactless experience wherever they can. If they can check in on their phone and get a digital key, go right to their room, order room service right from their own device, you know, be able to book spa and golf and dining reservations, and be able to shake their phone and, you know, charge to their room or to their account. You know, all of those things are, you know, the more that we can provide to the guest to self-serve, you know, and also being able to see a lot of those cleaning protocols and everything else, videos on your website or on the mobile device, so that they have some understanding pre-stay of what the experience is going to look like, and give them that confidence that they'll be safe. So I think the more that hotels can do to do that and engage with the guests, you know, through technology, and then technology is a great, you know, from a cost perspective, you're eliminating cost by using some automation, right? So if those guests are now calling the hotel to find out about their cleaning protocols and everything else, they're now tying up the phone for a very long time for every guest that's, you know, checking in. So the more that they can offload to technology, the better the guests will feel with that more information and more security, and as well they'll feel better served through this self-service. I think we're going to see, you know, mobile was always the future of hospitality. I think what COVID has done is really accelerated that future, and so we're just going to see more and more guests really wanting that sort of mobile concierge type experience, where they don't necessarily have to pick up the phone or have that one-to-one, you know, face-to-face. We're never going to eliminate good hospitality, that face-to-face sort of warmth, but I think technology can really help, especially to the guests that will feel better served if they had that opportunity. So I think we're going to see some interesting shifts over the next, you know, 12 to 18 months for sure.
So let's change gears for a minute. I think this is actually a good segue. We asked our respondents to comment on what factors will influence their decision making to select hotels. And we asked in two different ways. We asked first and foremost regarding health and safety. And these are the results that were reported from our respondents. Then I'll get into the second part, which is on the technology in just a moment. But I wanted to get your take. This is what guests said were most concerning to them. Now, the good news is their concerns regarding their health and safety or the prospects of them coming in contact with COVID in a hotel they were concerned, but those concerns were fairly moderate. Just what we'd expect, but there's a great sense of confidence in what hotels are doing. So these are the areas, mostly public-facing areas, that drew concern. What are your thoughts on these findings, Josh?
Yeah, so I mean, not overly surprised by the results. I think if you look at the areas that rated highest in concern, they all really have one thing in common. I'd say they're all high-touch areas of the hotel with open access to guests. The one I was kind of surprised about that wasn't on here, and as we're a TV provider, I expected to see the TV remote on this list, but I guess that was probably lumped into the guest room. But was surprised, I'd say, in general, that the guest room overall wasn't included. Based on feedback I've heard in the past, a lot of people have hesitancy around the guest room, but apparently at this time, right, with the advanced communication and the advanced cleaning, that solved a lot of that. But I think one of the big things for the guest room is to once you're in the guest room, right, it's your guest room, right? It's been cleaned, it's been sanitized. There may have been a gap between the last guest and you, so you feel pretty comfortable. And now that you're in there, you're kind of in there by yourself, right? And nobody else has public access to it. So if anything, that was kind of the shocking part of it to me, that guest room wasn't included here.
So let's go and take a look at what our guests said about technology expectations. So we asked guests about the various technologies that they would expect or need, and these are the results that came up. Frank, any thoughts here or aha moments for you as you look at this data?
Yeah, I mean, there's 5 or 6 of them that are really around sort of, ability to check in, check out, and mobile reservations, and ability to make contactless payments. There's a huge chunk of them. If you add them all up, I mean, that's a pretty direct sort of feedback in terms of guest expectations around technology. So, and around mobile, specifically in the contactless experience. So, seems pretty important to guests that hotels are delivering this kind of experience. And I think as I said earlier, mobile is the future, and being able to create that really seamless guest journey and guest experience, I think is going to be key. The other side of it is taking all of this and being able to personalize the experience. So, with adding technology, you don't want to lose that bit of hospitality. So the ability to do personalization will be that ace in your pocket, right? So that if you have the ability to deliver a personalized mobile experience with upselling and everything else, I think it's going to be really a win-win for hotels and for the guest. So it's certainly some for me some exciting feedback around these expectations and the future of the experience, for sure.
How about Josh? Would you like to add?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I like what Frank said, and everything he's talking about, right, ultimately rides over a network on the property. And you'll see here, 80% of people said free Wi-Fi is the feature that they expect a hotel to offer. What they probably didn't say is they also expect it to be fast, reliable, and also highly secure. But to me, I mean, this is kind of the backbone to everything else you're going to build, right? Make sure your network has the bandwidth, it has the capacity to handle all of today's needs, right? We're continuing to see the proliferation of smart TVs, smart apps, streaming video. The guests are spending more time in their hotel room, right? They're watching more video. They're now Google chatting, they're Zooming, they're FaceTiming. They're just using a lot more bandwidth in general. And to think that's going to go away in the future is unlikely, right? It's kind of the state of the world, and it doesn't usually go backwards. So I would think as you're kind of looking at your infrastructure today, almost everything I think on this list is going to ride over your network infrastructure. So back office, front office, guest facing apps, right? If you lose that connectivity or you don't have sufficient bandwidth, you are going to create a significant challenge for your guests and your employees. So that'd be my one comment here as you're forward looking, is making sure you're judging the capabilities of your network appropriately, and kind of start looking for that next level of advancement if needed, and plan for 5 years out, not for this time being. So
both of you have indicated that we're going to see more technology in the days to come. We have an audience question, and it says, hotels are focused on keyless entry and mobile key installations. But what it seems is that guest take rates for the use of these mobile keys is about the same post-COVID as it was pre-COVID. So the question is a mobile key strategy a good investment for hotels at this point, or should the focus be on other technologies?
Yeah, so I'll comment on that, Dan. I think that the key here, no pun intended, is that it's really about providing utility to the guest. If you provide just one function on the mobile app, the guest will, should I really, download the app and do all of those things? But if you're doing all of the kinds of things that we described, or at least more and more of those things, and providing that real concierge mobile utility to the guests, where they can charge, contactless payments, and they can, check in and be able to do other booking, dining reservations and spa treatments and golf tee times, whatever it might be, the more utility you're going to provide to the guest, the more value they're going to see in downloading it and then taking advantage of some of these features. You can't just do sort of one and done type of strategy. I think has to be a much more comprehensive view of the guest experience and how you're going to incorporate technology into that. I think the other thing that the pandemic has really taught us is our business models, right? We have to learn to do less or more with less, right? And so, in terms of staffing and everything else, we have to start looking at revenue managing our operations beyond just the hotel room, to also revenue manage demand in the spa, or demand in the dining areas, or demand in golf, or whatever other types of experiences are offered. I think revenue managers need to start looking at all of those things, because they have been doing those things as they've ramped up with fewer staff members. They've had to take a different look at their business. And I think there's some real positives there that will stay with us as best practices moving forward.
So I love this quote from Eeyore: "It never hurts to keep looking for sunshine." I always say that without hope, what do we have? And, the hospitality industry has proven time and again that it's a very resilient industry. It has bounced back from a number of different crises and situations, whether it be the recession of 2008 or the terrorism acts of 9/11. Certainly, the industry has felt the pains, but has bounced back and often stronger than ever. What do you see will be here post-COVID? What has COVID taught us and provided that's good, that will continue on as we go forward?
And wrap us up, Josh?
Yeah, sure. I'll make this quick. I know we're almost out of time, but I think, to me, the pandemic has taught all of us, not just hoteliers, right? The need to be flexible and adapt to the needs of our customer is kind of the key, right? And we have to do it with a sense of urgency. This really means, right, ultimately, you need to always be tuned into kind of your customers' wants and desires and be able to react to them quickly and communicate to them how you've reacted to their new desires. So as the world changes, right, you got to be ready to change with it. I think the ones that have done that exceedingly well through this pandemic have thrived in some sense, and will continue to thrive moving forward, and have probably been able to take the lessons from what their customers desired through this, and will be able to adapt those for the future needs of them.
Frank, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, and back to what I said earlier, it's just about all of the learnings that we've had. I think, looking at opportunities to use technology to streamline operations and provide some of that automation, and the, just bringing all of your vendors together and just starting with the guest experience you want first, and then making sure that you're all aligned in terms of being able to deliver that. So not just picking point solutions, but really looking at the guest experience first, and being able to deploy technology that will obviously alleviate concerns, and also serve them well, and drive more revenue. Beyond just heads and beds, let's drive more profitable revenue for hotels across all their operations.
Josh and Frank, you've covered a lot of ground in a short period of time and provided some great information and advice. What would be one key thing you want to make sure our audience takes away, and perhaps is an actionable item that as they return to their places of work, they can begin working on? What advice would you have?
I'd say, so for me, right, the takeaway is that guests want to return. I mean, it's clear people are missing their travel. They want to go to restaurants, stay in hotels, as I said, go to the beach. But life's really changed the way we communicate today, the way we expect to be communicated with, and the way we consume entertainment as a whole. And I tried to hit it on a little bit earlier, but I think I'll emphasize it here, though, as we all continue kind of to consume more and more bandwidth. And we see new technologies like artificial intelligence and VR and 5G and CBRS and Wi-Fi 6 and on, right? There'll be more and more consumption, but there'll also be more and more bandwidth available. So I'd say the takeaway, I'd say consider being on kind of the leading edge, if not the bleeding edge of this technology. And that, right, your guests will notice one way or the other if you are not creating a network environment that is going to continue to meet their needs. So I'd say focus on that, and a lot of the other items that Frank will probably mention, we'll have a great time riding over it.
Frank, before you respond, I wanted to throw this question in from the audience that I think is really applicable for Josh. And the question is, with everything being mobile and all guests using their devices and content on those devices, is there a need for TV and in-room entertainment anymore in a guest room?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right. There is certain content that is not available through streaming apps, right? Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus. They have a lot of great series, but they don't have is news. They don't have live sports typically, which are kind of requirements, right? Especially the local channels. This is often kind of the divide, though. But we do see more and more of that content consumption absolutely moving to personal devices. At some point in the future, will TVs not exist in hotel rooms? Likely, right? But for right now, I think the combination of the ability to stream apps as well as the ability for the live TV I mentioned still makes it valuable to most guests. Plus, it's a much larger screen and a better experience to watch your content on.
So I think we need to shift over to Abby here to wrap things up, so get everyone to their networking break.
Okay, well, I want to just thank everybody for participating, and I will turn it over to Abby.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was a great conversation. That data is all in Hospitality Technologies Customer Engagement Technology Study, which we'll be releasing tomorrow. And we will share a link out to everyone that's inside this platform so that you'll have an opportunity to take a look at that data in its entirety. A lot of some of the questions that came up, in fact, are covered in our broader report. We're going to move to our networking break now. If you haven't had a chance to explore the exhibit halls, we encourage you to do that. Lots of great giveaways going on here with some of our sponsors at the event. Please navigate the platform so that you can check out some of the on-demand content in many of the rooms, as well as the thought leadership content that's been embedded by many of our solution providers. And then we're going to move over, after our networking break, we're going to move over to our next interactive workshop. That begins at 3 o'clock Eastern, and you can click on the workshops and receptions icon at the bottom of your screen. Those workshops are open to hoteliers and today's discussion table sponsors. Thank you so much, everyone. We will see you in the networking reception. If we don't see you before, that begins at 3:45 Eastern, also accessible through that same link that says workshops and receptions. Okay, have a great afternoon. See you in a little bit.